Shabbat Shalom. You know, it almost feels like spring to be able to celebrate the Shabbat. The sun is still out. It's almost warm-ish. So to be able to celebrate Shabbat together, to welcome a season, to welcome each other into Shabbat is always a pleasure. It's always an honor. And in order to help each of us welcome the moment, we welcome each other into the moment. And we either turn to someone we know or someone we don't know. We are online somewhere and sending messages to people. And take a second to wish each other Shabbat Shalom. It's easy to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom tonight. We double our minyan with everyone online, so we welcome the brightness, we welcome the joy, the sweetness, and we just welcome Shabbat by taking a deep breath and lighting some candles and sipping some juice. Babette, I invite you to join me. You can take it out of the silver thing if you want.
Is this magic?
Keep pulling. There you go. Let's take the box.
See how we do here.
I have faith in you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. We can do a little bit of juice.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam parei peri hagafen.
Amen. L'chaim. You say the blessing, you got to take at least a little sip. Thank you. So we can continue to welcome Shabbat when we call Shabbat our beloved. We tell Shabbat that she is not only welcome in our space, in our hearts, but that she means something to us that we would only call our most dearest friends and partners. We say, Lecha dodi likra kala, come, my beloved, let us greet the bride of Shabbat, page 20 or 138 in the larger volumes. When we step into Shabbat, we're given Psalms to help us prepare. We're given Psalms to help us kind of meditate on the week that was, on how we got to this place. And then Shabbat is able to bloom as we're able to put all of that behind us and watch the beauty that is the flower of Shabbat. And so our Psalm for Shabbat, Psalm 92 on page 22 or 140 tells us, Sadiq katamar yifrach, that the righteous bloom like a date palm. And we get to be righteous as we bloom with Shabbat. Sadiq katamar, the bottom of page 22 or 140. Sadiq katamar yifrach ke'eretz balanon yizkeh shetuli beveit Adonai. Hasrot Eloheinu yafrichu ojenu v'seva t'sheni v'ra'anim yilu v'hagim ki ashar Adonai tzuri v'lo avlatabo. After 6 months of winter, Shabbat exploded into spring. To the left, to the right, daffodils and apple blossoms, fresh grass and blushes of green burst out. Shabbat brought with it the first perfect day of spring. Except that it wasn't the first. Thursday was just as nice, except for the morning. The afternoon was just as nice. Thursday was just as warm, but Thursday, sunrise to sunset, I had 10 minutes to spend outside. Shabbat is not a perfect day. Shabbat is not the warm breeze, the fresh air, or the greening terrain. These things could appear any day of the week. So, what is Shabbat? Shabbat is the walk in the park, the moment spent under the apple tree. Shabbat is the chance to taste the sweetness that languished, unappreciated, for the first 6 days of the week. We appreciate being able to celebrate Shabbat. We appreciate being able to be here together. We appreciate being able to be called to presence, called to community, called to worship with the words of Baruch Hu, page 28 or 146. Please rise if you are able. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. I believe in the relevance of this nightfall when I stand in the prairie, under a round sky deeper than eternity, colder and more distant than the human mind can bear. I believe in the significance of Shabbat, though the urban skyline pushes me in, and only the stars are the ones that circle above waiting permission to land. I wrap myself, my family, my life in Shabbat, because it holds back the agoraphobic world, pulls in horizons and levels the sprawling towers. In another day, they will spill out uncontrolled, but for tonight, the world is made up of only a handful of people and enough time to enjoy their presence. Our tradition tells us that the ultimate presence is indeed a present, that sometimes we don't often know what we have right in front of us because we're distracted, because we're not really seeing what we have. So we're told that God's greatest gift is the gift of Torah, the eternal gift of knowing exactly what we have and being able to be grateful for it, of a tradition, of a future, of a present supported by each other. We ask for God to open up our eyes and teach us to notice every individual, every moment that we have, and in that we can find our way to live. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name. We will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name. We will know that you are one. We will know that you Shem kevod malchuto, le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto, le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, vidibarta bam, veshivtecha beveitecha, uvlechtecha vaderech, uvshochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam lehot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam amezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti adchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. We turn to our song at the sea, our song of freedom, page 40 or 158. Holy is the empty space. Isaac, I'm surprising you in going backwards. Holy is the empty space, the void from within the form. When we are pulled taut by the extremes of life, by conflicting desires, when we tremble in the guideless air, isolated even from those who are closest to us. Holy is the gaping dark. Though we are powerless before the rod, caught within our own chafing limitations, the forces that press and move us nevertheless. Holy is the unknowable abyss below. Because in the clear, still night, when we cry into the holes in the center of our being, our voices will echo in the space where there is nothing, and out will pour a song of comfort, clean and pure and soothing against the black. These poems come from a book called The Shabbat Bee, and every once in a while I find myself pulled back to it because it feels like, to me, it's such a real experience of Shabbat, right? It's not a perfect Shabbat. It's not only white linen tablecloths and the best behaved children and the perfect roasted chicken, because to me that's what Shabbat meals are. But it's not really knowing how to celebrate Shabbat, not really knowing how to observe and protect this holy time. And sometimes it can feel like that gaping hole that we can only add our song into. To me, this last poem most evokes this Hashkivenu prayer, because Hashkivenu in itself is a prayer that says, when we're asleep, we're out of control. When the night comes and we don't know what lays 10 feet ahead of us, we need a little extra protection. We need a little extra reassurance. And so we ask for that real life experience of being unsure, a little frightened, a little nervous, and we still pray, spread over us the shelter of your peace, O God. May that shelter be our foundation. May that shelter be the way that we find ourselves back to trust and back to the way that we are able to add our song to a holy and gaping dark. Hashkivenu Adonai, page 40 or 160. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu. Ushmor tzitinu, uvoinu, v'chaim u'shalom, me'atza ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. We turn to our tefillah, beginning on page 46 or 164. Please rise as you are able. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi agitahilatacha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula, Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo, Be'ahava, Melech Ozer, Umoshia Umagin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Michaye HaKol Atarav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umorid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim, Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umkayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Mi Chamocha Ba'al Givurot, Umido Melach, Melech Beimit Mechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Ata Lechachayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Please be seated. Page 60, or 178, our prayer for peace, for a shalom rav, for wholeness, for contentment to be placed upon us, upon the whole world, upon everyone we know and hold dear. Shalom rav. Please, God, place a peace upon all of us. We take these next few moments for our own personal prayers. It's always a blessing to be able to share blessings. It's a blessing to be able to be together and to count all of our blessings together, because as we count them, they multiply. And as much as we are here on Shabbat to count our blessings, to be able to feel that gratitude and that acknowledgement of our blessings, we also want to take our blessings and share them with others, to lend our blessings to those who maybe need a blessing of health, a blessing of healing, whether it's of body, of spirit, or of soul. So if there is someone whom you are thinking of, and you're joining us in our digital sanctuary, I invite you to type the name of someone who you would like to share your blessings with into the comment section. And if you're here in our physical sanctuary, to rise and say the name of someone you're thinking of out loud. Thank you. Thank you. And as a community, we also think of Aileen Blum, Norman Boyer, Sarah Cohen, Harvey Ezrell, Dan Franks, Gail Garbarski, Barbara Hoffman, Larry Cart, Justin Keller, Jim Clapman, Alice Krause, Nicole and Michael McGovern, Warren Meister, Jane Neal, Daryl Osborne, Betty Pallas, Mark Pierce, Ronald Rubin, Jocelyn Snower, Katie Sparrow, Larry Steiner, Patricia Weinfuss, Mark Weiss, Beth Weiner, George Wittenberg, and Jacqueline Wolfson. Our Misha Barach prayer, our prayer for healing, can be found on page 253 or 371. Those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. I was given the instructions to stand on the bima because it looks prettier. The lights are better, but if I come closer to you, is that okay for like a couple minutes? Okay. Paul, if you want, you can come closer, but okay. Because this Shabbat, I get to do a little bit of reflecting on what got me to this Shabbat, because some number of years ago, that I don't want to do the math, it was this Shabbat that I became bat mitzvah. I know I do like doing the math, but mental math is not my strong suit. Patterns are my strong suit. So it was more than another bat mitzvah ago. But I read the same portion. It just happens that it lines up that I became bat mitzvah on March 24th, and that was also the portion of Vayikra. And the truth is, I don't remember much about my bat mitzvah. I remember not sleeping well at all the night before, so my 13-year-old delirious self really had no idea what I was doing. But the one thing that does stand out in my memory is that this portion is all about sacrifices, and really, this book of the Torah is all about sacrifices. Leviticus loves to talk about sacrifices. But this particular portion is graphic in those sacrifices. Talks a lot about which animals and where the blood goes and who wears the blood, and it gets very specific. And I don't remember what my Devar Torah was about, but I remember the rabbi getting up after the Devar Torah and saying, "So, what'd you think of the Torah portion?" And all I could think of to say in that moment was, ew. Just ew. I had a great vocabulary when I was 13. But there's something about sacrifices that feels really foreign to us, right? That we don't do sacrifices anymore, thank goodness. My dog is very happy to know that animal sacrifices are off the table. But the idea of sacrificing in order to communicate with God, in order to express our wishes to God, it feels strange to us, right? We're able to communicate with God by offering of ourselves, our best intentions, our experiences. We don't need to give up the physical, sacrifice the physical in order to have a divine experience. And I would say that that's probably true for almost every Jew that you meet, that the sacrifices of the Torah, even though the kinds of sacrifices, the well-being sacrifice, the sacrifice for peace, the sacrifice for atonement, the categories still connect, the practice really doesn't anymore. And it's possible that we translate that word korban incorrectly. Because what we now know, what we call sacrifices all the time, doesn't come from the Hebrew root to give up or to give away. It comes from the Hebrew root to get closer, karov. Maybe you can hear karov in korban a little bit. The sacrifices back then were never really meant to be I'm giving up of my things, of myself. I'm lessening what I have in order for you, God, to have more and be more inclined to listen to me. They were meant as a way for us to get closer to the one that we're trying to talk to. They were meant for us to approach God and say, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. This is me. Accept it. And this portion has a lot of talk of sacrifices, but it also includes one really otherwise weird thing in the Torah. And we say that there's no such thing as a typo in the Torah. There are no mistakes in the text. But if you read the very, very first word of this portion, it says Vayikra, Vav Yud Kuf Resh Aleph. But that Aleph is really, really tiny. And no one actually knows why. It's like the prayer Mi Chamocha. We don't really know why one Mi Chamocha is Mi Chamocha and the next one is Mi Kamocha. It just is, and we like it that way. It helps us vary our singing sometimes. So we wonder, why is it that Vayikra has a tiny little aleph in it? And there is a midrash, the letters of Rabbi Akiva, that tell the story of the aleph. How did the aleph get to be the first letter of the Ten Commandments and not the first letter of the Torah? And it said that when God was writing the Torah, God asked each letter of the Aleph Bet to come forward and give an argument as to why they should start the Torah. Why should Tav or Gimel or Tzadi be the letter that begins the Torah? And each one came with a great word that they would start. Tzadi would start the word for tzaddik, a righteous person. Shin would start the one of the many nicknames for God, Shaddai. Each one had a really good reason. But God would always counter that reason with, yes, but there's these other words that we don't really want to associate with Torah. You don't only start the good words, you also kind of start the bad words too. Until, for some reason, God was working backwards. I don't know why. Until the bet came and said, God, I start all the most important lines in practice. I start every single word, Baruch, Baruch Hu. I start the word for blessing. I should start the Torah. And God said, sure, it's all yours, Bet, enjoy. Bereshit bara Elohim, and God created the heavens and the earth, and it all starts with a bet. But then there's this little Aleph kind of sitting on the side, not making noise. If you know the Aleph Bet, you know that the Aleph doesn't make noise at all. It's kind of shy. It's kind of not wanting to make too big of a deal of itself. And God says, I didn't give you a chance to say anything. And the Aleph is like, I don't really want to make a big deal out of all of this. You already chose the bet. Go with the bet. But me, I'm nothing. All these letters, they're also numbers, and they equal more than I do. Me and Aleph, I'm just one. I don't mean that much. I'm not that important. God, you don't need to take me into consideration. And God said, because you are so humble, because you are one and I am one, we will go up on Mount Sinai together. And you can begin the 10 Commandments. Anochi Adonai Elohechem, I am your God. All starts with an Aleph. But that little Aleph in Vayikra is that clue that Aleph is shy. It's not ostentatious. It doesn't hit you in the face like maybe a tzadi would or a bet would. It doesn't need to take up a lot of space. So why does Vayikra, why would I be telling you about the story of an Aleph and the story of sacrifices? Because if you look really closely at these roots, Korban has the sacrifice Kuf Resh Bet, has the root Kuf Resh Bet. Vayikra, Kuf Resh Aleph. There's still this little competition going on between the Bet and the Aleph. And to me, if we were to start to understand this sacrifice, not as a sacrifice, but as a being present, as a getting closer, then what would happen if we changed the Bet into an Aleph? It's not necessarily a sacrifice, it's a getting closer. It's a call that we might hear. Vayikra Adonai el Moshe lemor, and God called to Moses from the tent of meeting. That's how our Torah portion begins. God says, come closer. Come spend time with me. Don't give up of yourself, but be here. Be with me. And I think about that Aleph as almost my instinct, to be a little shy, a little bit off to the side. It doesn't have to be that way, because the only way you get close is by being brave, by stepping forward and offering of yourself. Sometimes you can be like an Aleph and not need to take up a lot of space, not knowing about how you'll be received, feeling like if you were to step forward, you'd have to be giving up pieces of yourself, pieces that you treasure. But when we're able to have it be a getting closer and not a shy stepping away. There are things that we get to realize, divinity that we get to see in that closeness that we wouldn't have noticed otherwise. The Aleph never knew that it could be the announcement of commandments and of Torah, the gift that God gives to Moses and the Israelites and then to us on the mountain, because the Aleph didn't want to speak up. But until the Aleph knew, I mean something, I say something, and someone listens to me. Until the Aleph was able to be brave and put aside some of that Aleph instinct, the Aleph was able to get close. And I think about that now. If the rabbi were to ask me again, maybe I'll just look in the mirror and ask myself, what do you think of this Torah portion? It was a different rabbi back then. I see you laughing at me. But if I had to answer the question now, what do you think of this portion? I might still say ew. But I'd also think about the idea of what it means to have that bravery in order to get closer, in order to step closer to God, in order to meet each other and be able to fully see who we are together and be able to build that community. Without changing the Aleph to a bet, we wouldn't be able to do that. So we start this book of Leviticus together, maybe with a little bit of bravery. Maybe your vegetarian self really struggles with reading of the sacrifices. Maybe it's not your favorite book because it has a lot of legalese in it. Maybe you're a lawyer and you love the legalese. But maybe our approach to Torah in general can be a little bit more of a korban and a little bit less of an aleph, a little bit more stepping forward and an offering, and a little bit less of a shy timidness. If we can spend this Shabbat practicing our korbanot, our offerings of ourselves, our bravery in Torah and in life, then perhaps it will be a Shabbat well spent. Perhaps we'll learn something new. Perhaps we'll find a little bit of that divine within us, within our own tents of meeting, wherever we happen to be. Perhaps if we can be a little bit more like a bet for just one day, a whole Shabbat can open up for us. That is my prayer for us. That perhaps on the days that we feel a little unsure of ourselves, a little not yet ready to enter into the world, a little bit of let someone else have the spotlight, we can put our olive self aside for just a moment and step in. Be brave. Be a bet. Shabbat Shalom. Those opportunities for bravery are opportunities to make the world as we know it truly can be. A world filled with chesed and loving kindness. A world filled with tzedek and righteousness. A world filled with all those other good words that all the other letters brought with them. In fact, it can be a world that the very first letter, the last letter of the Aleph Bet, brought with it. A world of tikkun, a world of repair. And we're told, L'takein olam b'malchut Shaddai, to do those acts of repair, to be brave as we step into that creation of the world as we know it can be, with the help of each other and with the inspiration of God. L'takein olam b'malchut Shaddai. Together we can heal the world. L'takein olam b'malchut Shaddai. children of Adonai. Remember, V'haya Adonai, Melech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, U'shemo, U'shemo, U'shemo echad. We must all work together, because we are all the children of Adonai. It's at this point in our service that we think of those who have taught us how to be brave, those whom we live their legacies every day. We think of those who have passed through this world but forever remain a part of our hearts, our minds, and our souls. If there's someone whom you are thinking of, whether you're in a period of Shiva or Shloshim, whether you're marking a yahrzeit, or someone just happens to be called to mind at this moment, and you're joining us in our digital sanctuary, I invite you to write the name of the person you're thinking of in the comment section. And as I read the names of those who we remember as a community, as you hear the name of your loved one, I invite you to rise in memory. This week marks the recent passings of Gloria Glindon, Darlene Guilford, Rosalind Hammer, Beth Hirschfeld, Virgil Jurens, Vivian Kaplan, Fanny Krashen, Evelyn New, Edith Phillips, Shirley Rothenberg, and Pete Wilson. This week, we also mourn the passing of Gary J. Croman, husband of Judy, father of Blake and Russell, grandfather of Haley, Olivia, Chloe, Chase, and Kendall, brother of Todd and Sheila, dear loved one of Jill, Allison, Candy, and Tom. And we mourn the passing this week of Ron Buchanan, father of Brad, grandfather of Rachel, brother of Earl and Nancy, brother-in-law of Sandy, and dear loved one of Lisa, Marilyn, Brian, and Nat. This week also marks the yahrzeits of Celia Brown, Henry Cohen, Julius Kahn, Emmanuel Cole, Ruth Fine, John Flaxman, Joan Fraden, Leonore Gluskin, Marcia Hart, Celia Hoffman, Isidore Honig, Samuel Eicher, Renee Kaffenstock, Miriam Katz, Robert Katz, Philip Lane, Martin Lansner, Ben Lieberman, Sarah Manis Locke, A.J. Madro, Mitzi Moses, Herbert Redman, William Resnick, Dave Rickman, Marie Rohrbach, Anna Rosenberg, Jacob Rothschild, Theodore Ted Rubin, Barbara Barb Ruttenberg, Ida Cohen Schulman, Bernard J. Seff, Seymour Simon, Ann Tyker, Goldie Tracy, Lois Turum, Hyman Warshan, Bernard Weingart, Ida Weintraub, Marion West, Marshall Yasuna, and Rose Yasuna. If there are names, other names of those whom we are remembering, I invite you to rise and say them aloud. Thank you. Thank you. Together as one family, we turn to our Kadisha Tome, our Mourner's Kaddish on page 294 or 598. Please rise as you are able. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach rote v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayed kol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei almaya, yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal shmei d'kudsha b'rechu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, Da'amiram be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, Zichronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. Babette.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Babette Sanders. I'm a member of the Board of Directors. Rabbi Heaps, where'd you just go?
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. The woman of many talents. Thank you for such an enriching service, Paul. Thank you as well. And now that Rabbi Heaps mentioned that this was her Torah portion, we can wish you a happy early birthday. It's very close. So, and as you were talking about what your rabbi said to you before your bat mitzvah, I'm probably the only person in this room who could say that she was my rabbi for my bat mitzvah when I participated in an adult b'nai mitzvah a few years ago here. And what a treat that was to learn from her as she shared her knowledge with us tonight. It never stops, so thank you. Before I came to services, I was on Facebook, the source of all knowledge, obviously, and there were pictures of our congregants who were on the Israel trip, and they were on a roof in Jerusalem, overlooking Jerusalem. My daughter's in Jerusalem right now, helping to chaperone the JUF 8th grade trip, and I was thinking, gosh, it would be really nice to be in Jerusalem right now. At least it's above 30 and it's not going to snow tomorrow. However, that warmth, that feeling of being in Jerusalem and celebrating Shabbat in that way. And thank you for bringing a little bit of that here tonight as we shared Shabbat. I just take a minute to encourage you to look at the website, or if you're not used to reading the email that comes on Thursday night precisely at 7:30, okay? If you don't have your watch, anything else, precisely at 7:30. There's an outline of all of the activities available over the next few weeks. There's something for everybody, from helping to feed the hungry on April 2nd, Passover matzah brai on April 6th, followed by a children's chocolate seder on April 8th. Do you see the theme here, from matzah brai to chocolate? I want to chaperone that chocolate seder, actually. So, but there are lots of activities, and I just encourage you to stay up, find something. April 21st, I believe, is every third Friday night we have Shabbat with friends, and on April 21st it will be here in the temple, so please sign up and get to meet lots of people. We generally move tables and have an opportunity to really meet, mingle, and become even more a part of our community. So please think about coming, and Shabbat Shalom.
Please rise for our closing blessing. Mishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu, may the one who blessed our ancestors bless us this Shabbat as you have blessed us every Shabbat up until this moment. Bless us as we find our bravery and our courage to step closer to those whom we love, to those whom we're curious about, to those who we can find God within. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless us this Shabbat and every Shabbat from now until forever. And together we say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
It was lovely, Rabbi.